Under Sulu's command, the Excelsior had followed the Enterprise to Prestor 5 and learned how Teolani had purchased new weapons and headed to Delston 8 to have them installed. 5 light years from the space docks at Delston 8, Sulu ordered the Excelsior to drop out of warp and come to a relative stop. The trail of the Enterprise had abruptly disappeared. On Excelsior's bridge, Chekhov worked with Spock to reconfigure the main sensors. They had all served with Captain Kirk. He had seen him cover his tracks too many times to think following him would be easy. Finally, Spock looked up from his science station. Sensors have made contact. Subspace disturbance at bearing 144 Mark 20. At tactical, Chekhov confirmed the distortion pattern. It's the Enterprise's warp signature. The helmsman asked if he should lay in a course to match the new trail. Sulu smiled knowingly. Negative. If I know Captain Kirk, we should find at least 3 warp trails from this location. In the end, they found 4. Kirk had looped back 3 times to muddy the subspace waters, laying false trails. Sulu chose to follow the course heading for the Klingon Empire, because who would ever believe Captain Kirk would willingly return there? 5 hours later, the Enterprise's trail ended again, but without a return loop, indicating Kirk had once again dropped from warp to change course. This time they found 3 possible trails. Spock confirmed the method behind Kirk's evasive maneuvers. It is a feint he has used in chess many times to hide the true focus of attack through misdirection. Chekhov looked up from his tactical displays. It is not like the captain to repeat himself. Spock agreed. Logically, we should choose the trail that leads away from the obvious choice. Spock gave the bearing. The Excelsior smoothly stretched into the infinite realms of warp speed. Chekhov smiled to himself. It was almost like being back on the Enterprise. Then the Excelsior hit a brick wall. The main view screen flared orange-white. Chekhov pulled himself back to his tactical board. His fingers flew over the controls. There was nothing. Nothing. And then, it was on the view screen. 3 Klingon battlecruisers dropped from warp, dead ahead. Uhura shouted over the alarms. Captain, we're being hailed. On screen, the Klingon commander was young, eager eyes gleaming viciously. Federation starship, you have intruded in restricted Klingon space. Surrender or die. Sulu retorted with anger. Go to hell. To his crew, he added, go to red alert, full power to shields, phasers on standby. Chekhov read his tactical displays. All 3 cruisers have locked weapons on us. Sulu stood to face the view screen. Klingon commander, I am Captain Sulu of the starship Excelsior. We are searching for a Federation vessel under the authority of Chancellor Azitbur. The Klingon blinked. How dare you invoke the name of our Chancellor for your foul crimes? I say again, the Excelsior has full diplomatic clearance to conduct her search in Klingon territory. Contact your Central Command for verification. Then I'll be more than happy to accept your apology. Sulu turned to Uhura. Close the channel. McCoy piped up. I thought Admiral Drake personally cleared all this through Azitbur. Uhura looked up from her comm station. Presumably we're about to find out. I'm picking up a flurry of encrypted messages. But that's odd. It's an old code. We can crack it. 2 minutes, maybe 3. In a few minutes, Uhura announced the computer had decoded the Klingon message to Central Command. But I don't understand. It's just random bits. Even Spock was puzzled, but he offered a possible explanation. The only logical way this message makes sense is if we assume it is a prearranged signal. Finally, 10 minutes after the Klingon message had been sent, Uhura announced that a reply was returning. Given the short response time, sir, there must be a command ship nearby. Sulu returned to his command chair. On your toes, everyone. What's happening, Uhura? Ship-to-ship communications, all encrypted, sounds like... Sir? They're initiating a countdown. 2 of the Klingon cruisers disappeared from the view screen. Chekhov's sensors told him what had happened. Damn! We've been englobed! At warp speed, the 2 cruisers had each positioned themselves from the first cruiser and from each other in a circle around the Excelsior. The Excelsior could run, but the Klingons had made sure that at least 2 or 3 photon torpedoes would impact before she had reached her top speed. The Klingon commander is hailing us. Sulu glowered. Open a channel. The Klingon commander reappeared on the view screen, sprawled, comfortably in his chair.
Captain Sulu of the starship Excelsior, my Central Command has no record of any diplomatic clearance being given to you or your vessel. Prepare to be boarded, or prepare to die.
I know you're lying. We decoded your message. You didn't ask your Central Command.
Cha!
The Klingon disappeared from the screen. Chekhov warned the bridge. Torpedoes launched. Instantly, Excelsior rocked with multiple impacts. Shields at 90%. They're firing again. Sulu jumped from his command chair and went to the helm. Engineering, prepare for warp pulse. On my mark. Brace yourself. Sulu's fingers flew over the controls. Instantly, the single cruiser on the view screen expanded as the Excelsior accelerated forward at the speed of light and swept beneath it, missing the cruiser's shield by only 6 meters. When the warp pulse ended, Excelsior bobbed up behind the cruiser. Then Chekhov saw the torpedo traces on his board. Their targeting computers hadn't been able to make sense of Sulu's maneuvers. The view screen flared white as the Katinga-class cruiser fell victim to the torpedoes launched by its sister ships. Sulu smiled grimly. 2-to-1 odds, we can handle easily. Uhura, open a channel, please. The clouds of debris were replaced by the astonished face of the Klingon commander. I am still not looking for a fight. All I want you to do is shut down your warp cores. That way I know it will take you at least 6 hours to power up again before you can follow us. Suddenly, Chekhov saw the long-range sensor display light up. Incoming vessel, a Starfleet shuttle. Uhura looked up from her station, hand to her earpiece. The shuttle is hailing us, Captain. On screen, Uhura. It was Admiral Androvar Drake.
Captain Sulu, lower your shield so I can dock.
Sir, we are involved in a firefight with 2 Klingon cruisers. I must request that you withdraw to a safe distance.
Leave the Klingons to me, Captain. I've got a coded message for them from their High Council.
Uhura announced. The shuttle is transmitting to the Klingon ships a new type of encryption code. Chekhov watched his board. They are powering down their weapons, Captain. They are dropping their shields. Sulu stood up. Admiral Drake, may I ask what you're doing here? Drake deflected the question.
I'll come aboard as soon as I dock, Captain. The message I've relayed to the Klingons explains the situation to them and gives them their orders. They're to escort us as we track the Enterprise.
Sulu signaled for Uhura to end the transmission. He looked over to Spock. Captain Spock, what would you say the odds were for the Commander-in-Chief of Starfleet to come this far into Klingon space without an entire flotilla for security? Incalculable, Captain. As far as Spock could tell, the Excelsior and her crew were no longer tracking Kirk for Starfleet and the good of the Federation. They were hunting him for Admiral Androvar Drake. As Drake's shuttle thudded gently against the Excelsior aft airlock, the computer confirmed a solid docking. In the pilot's chair, Ariadne shut down the maneuvering thrusters. She turned to her father. The Excelsior destroyed one of our cruisers. How are the mercenaries going to react to that? Drake got out of his passenger seat. They've already agreed to betray their empire. Besides, the loss of a third of them means their payment isn't split as many ways. And remember, the Excelsior is on our side. Father, I wouldn't trust Sulu. He's a Starfleet officer, and I'm his commander-in-chief. But if I have to, I can replace Sulu as commander of the Excelsior. I can have his entire command crew thrown into the brig. I am Starfleet. Drake hugged his daughter. Ariadne, ever since Kirk killed your mother, he has always underestimated me. Father, the Klingons killed Mother. Drake's face hardened. Kirk let them get away with it. Once we have control of the Chiao, once I can dangle that before our friends on the Federation Council, war will be inevitable. The Klingon Empire will be crushed, and Kirk, with all his bleeding heart sympathizers, with it. He handed Ariadne her flight helmet. Keep that on, and make certain all the comm images are offline. I'll say my pilot has to stay on alert status in the shuttle in case of emergency evacuation. Ariadne pulled on her helmet, stuffed her hair into place beneath it. Drake gave his daughter's hand a squeeze. I'm doing this for you, for the future. But even as he said that, Ariadne feared her father might become a casualty of the past, fighting a war that had ended years ago. Kirk was one with the night. He leaned his back against the rough bark of an alien tree, listening to the sounds of the jungle around him. He heard nothing that betrayed the presence of the 15 Chiao who moved through the jungle with him, closing in on the anarchists' base. His soldiers. Kirk wished he could take credit for their training, but in truth they had none. Instead, the Chiao's innate abilities to move stealthily seemed to stem from their elaborate childhood games of hunts and chases for the jungle. Teolani and her people apparently had had a typical Klingon and Romulan upbringing. In the jungle, a shadow moved toward Kirk. Making not a sound, Teolani crept up beside him. Like Kirk, she wore the dark jumpsuit that was the uniform of those who fought for Chiao. Unlike Kirk, this was the first time she had faced real battle. Teolani brought out her combat tricorder and showed its display to Kirk. 16 muted green dots were arranged in a half circle around the target's coordinates. Each Chiao was in position. One last time, Kirk reviewed the situation. For years, the city dwellers had kept the advantage of a defensible position and hard technology. The anarchists had taken advantage of the jungle and elaborate jamming devices. Only Mr. Scott's wizardry with the Enterprise's weakened sensors had enabled Kirk to locate the anarchist stronghold 200 kilometers from Chiao's main city. But the stronghold was protected by a complex web of sensor screens, force fields, and jammers. The only way to bring both sides in the conflict together was by direct physical confrontation. He slipped his disruptor from its holster and checked again that it was at its stun setting. He looked at Teolani, and she reached out to touch Kirk's face, a silent gesture of her feelings. Her hand slid down to his neck. She tugged on the collar of his jumpsuit as if adjusting it. Now, Teolani. The anarchists' first perimeter line was only 20 meters ahead of them. Teolani cupped a hand to her mouth. She made the sound of a Chiao jungle night feeder. With the signal given, Kirk began moving carefully through the darkness, Teolani at his side. Because of the moon and the stars, the night sky of Chiao was slightly brighter than the stark black shadows of the surrounding trees and the anarchists' watchtowers. The towers were each 5 meters tall, roughly constructed of wood and vines. Surveillance had shown that each held 2 guards linked to the perimeter sensor web. They were Kirk's first target. Teolani repeated the night feeder's cry. 3, 2, 1, go. Kirk and Teolani charged forward. In his mind, he saw his soldiers move in perfect coordination with him. Instantly, the jungle roared to life with disruptors firing as each watchtower was hit by multiple beams. Cries of surprise followed as the anarchists behind the defensive perimeters heard the sensor's alarms. Micro-explosive shells with projectile weapons tore through the compound at Kirk's soldiers. While Kirk knew that the jumpsuits used by the Chiao contained an energy mesh that could dissipate much of the force of a disruptor beam, the explosive shells could kill. But Teolani had told him not to be overly worried. She said that the anarchists were unskilled with weapons and were unlikely to hit anyone they aimed at. Kirk ran past the closest watchtower. Its guards had been stunned as planned. The first stage of the attack was complete. Ahead was a wooden barricade reinforced with metal sheets from old shipping containers. Beyond it, a compound of wooden huts, the anarchists' camp. Teolani swung her projectile gun up, fired a burst of shells set for contact detonation. A section of the barricade disintegrated in flame. Before the smoke had thinned, Kirk had hurled himself toward the opening. He hit the ground on his shoulder, flipped over, and was firing his disruptor even as he came to his feet. 3 anarchists dropped in the orange glow of the disruptor beam. Kirk ran on. He exulted in his renewed vigor. An enormous fireball flared overhead as a munitions crate erupted. Kirk saw dark figures rushing about in confusion, the anarchists completely taken by surprise. Teolani rushed to his side, combat tricorder in hand. Each team is in. No casualties. Kirk flipped open his communicator. Scotty, beam in the second wave. Instantly, the warble of the transporter beams blended with the cries and explosions of the compound. In groups of 6, 3 more teams of Chiao took form near the breached barricade. Teolani watched the second wave teams fan out through the compound. James, it's going perfectly. She ran off to help with the capture of the anarchists. Kirk checked the compound. 10 meters away, a hover truck lifted into the air, its impeller fans whining as it flew straight for him. Unable to see, he fired his disruptor, then dove to the side. The truck crashed. and one of the anarchists leapt from the truck's cargo bin. He saw Kirk and ran at him. He aimed his projectile gun. Kirk was out of options. The disruptor had slipped from his hand as he fell. There was only one thing to do. He charged. The anarchist fired twice, point blank, before Kirk slammed into him. Kirk didn't even hear the whistle of the shells. He only felt the impact of his fist on the anarchist's jaw. The anarchist slumped back. The weapon fell from his hand. Kirk looked down at his chest. The projectiles had missed. For an instant, Kirk remembered Teolani spinning through the air in his parents' barn, a string of projectile explosives missing her by a heartbeat. Kirk reached up to his collar, felt a small, curved metal tube coiled inside the fabric. Teolani had adjusted it just before the attack began. What else was before him that he hadn't seen? Kirk glanced around the anarchists' compound. The fighting had ended. The battle fought and won. But Kirk knew a different war on Chiao was in progress. The device hidden in his collar was proof of it. He hauled the unconscious anarchist to his feet, flipped open his communicator. Kirk to Enterprise. I've got a prisoner with me, Scotty. I want you to beam us both directly to the brig.
Energizing, Captain.
The dark jungle compound dissolved around Kirk, changing into the bright plain walls of the Enterprise's brig. Kirk's prisoner moaned, coming around. The anarchist shook his head, saw Kirk, stared at him with hatred. Where have you brought me? You're on the Enterprise, a starship orbiting Chiao. The anarchist blinked in surprise, took another look around. A Federation ship? No, it's a private ship serving Teolani. What's your name? But at mention of Teolani, the anarchist spit at Kirk's feet. You're in no danger. After we've talked, you're free to return to Chiao. What's your name? Torl. Fine, Torl. How old are you? Torl was puzzled by the question. In your standard years? 42. Kirk studied his prisoner carefully. He saw only a youth no older than 20. Then it's true, Torl. There's something on Chiao, in the air or the water, that keeps people young. Isn't that the result of living on your world? Torl smiled with sudden knowledge. Tell me what Teolani told you, human. It took Kirk only an instant to make his decision. The colony on Chiao was jointly founded by the Klingons and the Romulans. It was deemed a failure and abandoned by both sides. Torl snorted in derision. It was an unqualified success. We weren't abandoned. We were hidden. Torl stepped closer to the security screen. We are the children of heaven, the Chalchech Khmer. The Klingon phrase meant nothing to Kirk. Torl held out a hand as if to touch the almost invisible security screen. Why are you here, human? What business of yours is Chiao? I'm trying to help stop the fighting so this planet will be at peace. Do you want to keep fighting? No, human. I want to destroy Teolani and her people. Then the fighting will stop. So you can sell the secret of Chiao to the rest of the galaxy? Torl actually snarled. Is that what she told you we were trying to do? Human, we want to bury Chiao, to wipe it out of existence. Why? It's a paradise. Torl jumped to his feet in rage. It is an obscenity. Kirk could not accept that. I have felt its influence. It's one of the most beautiful worlds I've ever seen, filled with bright, healthy people. Torl's eyes smoldered with repressed fury. At what cost? Has Teolani shown you the armory? The large building in the center of the city? That's an armory with weapons? If you believe truth is a weapon. Kirk had had enough. What is the truth? Torl seemed to age before Kirk's eyes. His shoulders slumped. For what I am going to tell you, please forgive me. Remember that in decades past, our people were manipulated by their rulers to hate you, to consider your species as nothing more than animals. Torl sat down on the bench and wept with shame. Then a new voice rang out in the brig. Mr. Kirk, stand back. Kirk spun around. Two Chiao stood in the doorway leading to the corridor. Each held a disruptor aimed past Kirk. Kirk recognized them. The attackers from the farm. The attackers who had died. He stepped in front of Torl, blocking the attackers' line of sight. An instant later, Kirk felt himself fly backward, each nerve on fire, with the all-too-familiar sting of a disruptor set to stun. The attackers walked past him. Kirk forced himself to turn his head just in time to see two disruptor beams hit Torl. The attackers looked down at Kirk. Reluctantly, they put away their weapons. Kirk sensed a third person entering the brig. Teolani. She knelt by him. "It's over, James. They're our prisoners now. All of them. Thanks to you, we've won." As the darkness claimed Kirk, he thought he could still hear Toro weeping. When James Kirk woke, he felt a cool cloth press against his forehead. A face hovered close to his, Teolani's. He rolled off the bed, pushing his way through the filmy gauze that hung around it. He was in Teolani's house. He stood naked on the cool tiled floors. He moved his arms and shoulders. No trace of any injury from the disruptor stun. Teolani slipped off the bed, wearing only a wrap of fabric as transparent as the gauze around the bed. His heart ached more than he could bear. But Teolani was the enemy now. "Where are my clothes?" She smiled playfully, oblivious to his mood. "Come to bed, James. I want to see if you've fully recovered." But Kirk turned from her, went to a wooden chest. Inside were his civilian clothes from Earth. He began to put them on. "Teolani, the attackers at the farm, they were your people, not anarchists." Teolani moved closer to Kirk, slipped her arms around him. "How could they be? They tried to kill you." He twisted away from her. "The game's over. They couldn't kill me." He tore at the collar of the jumpsuit, ripped out the silver coil of metal hidden in it. "Some sort of force field emitter, isn't it? Diverts the projectiles." Teolani stood her ground. "But James, at the farm, you saw me get shot. I saw you tug on your collar just as you turned your back to the window in the kitchen. A second later, the shot grazed your shoulder." "James, you don't have to think about this. The anarchists' threat has ended." "The anarchist in the brig was shot by the same two Chiao who were at the farm. You must have some innate Vulcan abilities on your Romulan side. Meditative control of the autonomic system. Is that it? Makes your heart stop for a few minutes to fool the human into helping out?" Kirk reached out to touch her face. "I can see now how well you played me. First you threw yourself at me, but I said no. So a minute later we were running for our lives, fighting side by side. And then you offered me a challenge when I didn't have one. You offered me a chance to save your world. That's my job, Teolani. That's what I do. Who I am. I couldn't refuse you, and you knew it." Teolani raised her voice. "I want to hear you say you don't love me." Kirk didn't take his eyes from hers. "I love my work." Teolani slapped him. Her Klingon nails raked his cheek. "Teolani, I can still help you. There is a secret on this world that I think even you don't know about." Teolani's face twisted in anger. "What lies did the anarchist tell you? Have you ever been in the armory?" He saw her flinch. "What's in there, Teolani?" She turned away from him. "I don't know." Kirk was surprised to sense she was telling the truth. "Then go there with me." He felt her shiver. "Why won't you just accept that you've done what you were supposed to do? We've won. Chiao is safe. You can stay here and be young with me forever. I know you love me." "Teolani, that's not enough." Kirk pulled his communicator from his jacket, opened it, acknowledged the call. "Scotty here, Captain. I'm picking up vessels approaching at high warp. At least 2 of them are Klingon. From their power curves, I'd have to say they were battle cruisers." "How soon until they're here, Scotty?" "Only 6 minutes. These sensors aren't the same as the old ones." Teolani held a hand over the communicator. "You didn't stop the anarchists in time after all. Are those Klingon ships coming here to destroy Chiao? That's why we wanted you to have a starship, fully armed and shielded." Kirk pulled the communicator away from her. "Scotty, beam me directly to the bridge." "Will that be 1 to beam up?" Kirk stepped back from Teolani. "1, Mr. Scott." But as soon as he said those words, Kirk knew Teolani would take them as a challenge. The beam dissolved him just as she fell into his arms. Scotty blinked in embarrassment as Teolani stepped away from Kirk on the bridge of the Enterprise. Her transparent wrap offered little more than the suggestion of clothes. Kirk took the center chair. The Chiao at communications turned to Kirk. I believe we're being hailed, sir." Kirk opened the channel and turned to the view screen, nearly jumping from his chair in surprise. It was Sulu. "Captain Kirk, good to see you again." "Sulu, are you traveling with the Klingons?" "We're being
escorted, sir.
I see. Is this a social visit? Sulu was about to answer, but he sat back as someone else moved into view. It was Drake. Kirk knew better than to turn his back on Drake for an instant. You're a long way from home, Admiral. Anything I should know about?
Sorry, Jim. This is Starfleet business. I'm here under the combined authority of Starfleet and the Klingon High Council.
Authority to do what?
That's classified, Jim.
Scotty announced to Kirk. The ships have dropped from orbit. They're moving to match our orbit. Drake remained silent for a few moments longer, then spoke over his shoulder to Sulu.
Captain, send down the security details to secure the city.
Kirk had no idea what Drake was up to, but he was going to stop him. Mr. Scott, I want a level 7 photon discharge into the ionosphere over the city. Scotty didn't question the order. The bridge rumbled with the launching of 3 photon torpedoes, one after the other. Kirk received another surprise when he heard Spock's voice come from the Excelsior bridge.
Admiral Drake, the Enterprise has created an area of high ionization over the Chiao city. We will be unable to beam anyone down for at least 20 minutes.
Spock! Is that you? Spock stepped on screen behind Sulu.
Greetings, Captain.
Then McCoy stepped on from the other side.
Fancy meeting you here, Jim.
Drake cut in.
This isn't a reunion, Jim. This is a Starfleet matter. I'm ordering you to withdraw.
I'm not a Starfleet officer. This is not a Starfleet vessel. You are not in Federation space. Scotty spun around from his tactical board. Captain, the Klingons are bringing their weapons online. Drake grinned coldly.
I'm now advising you that you are operating an illegally armed vessel in a restricted area of Klingon space. I'm suggesting you withdraw from this system or face the consequences.
Kirk had had enough. Sulu, what is that pompous ass going on about? Drake raised his hand as if to give an order to fire, but Sulu stepped down from his chair.
Captain Kirk, I know this is an awkward position for all of us to be in, but Starfleet is in possession of classified information, suggesting that Chiao could pose a threat to the peace process between the Federation and the Empire. My orders are to dispatch security teams to the planet's surface and secure any war material we find. We do have the authority from the Empire, sir.
That information made several pieces fall together to form a pattern. Drake wanted war material. The central structure in the city was an armory. Kirk watched Drake carefully. Would this have anything to do with the Chiao Khmer? Drake's eyes darkened.
What do you know about the Chiao Khmer?
Enough to know that I'm not letting you get near it. Captain Sulu, you're in violation of Chiao orbital space. I ask you to withdraw. Sulu bit his lip and looked at Drake.
Captain Sulu, the Enterprise is a threat to this mission. I am ordering you to neutralize that threat.
Reluctantly, Sulu complied.
Weapons officer, target the Enterprise's impulse thrusters.
Kirk knew Sulu had no choice. Kirk closed the channel to the Excelsior and brought a tactical display up on the view screen. Navigator, set course bearing 85 Mark 0. Full impulse, Mr. Scott, now. The Enterprise shuddered as she blazed towards Chiao. Taylani held onto Kirk's chair as the bridge bucked and the air screamed as the ship descended through the atmosphere. Entering the zone of ionization, Captain. How long can we stay in it, Scotty? 30 seconds, Captain. Taylani held onto Kirk's arm. James, what are you doing? Disappearing. They won't be able to lock onto us through the ionized area we've made. A few seconds will be long enough. Prepare for warp, Mr. Scott. Navigator, set course bearing 245 Mark 180. Warp 1. Now! The Enterprise groaned as she was suddenly torn from the atmosphere of Chiao at the speed of light, traveling back on a reverse course that would put her only a few hundred kilometers behind the Excelsior and her Klingon escorts. Take out those Klingons, Mr. Scott. Photon torpedoes, full spread. Scotty fired the torpedoes, overloading the Klingons' aft shields. The Excelsior is coming about, Captain. Put the Klingons between her and us and fire full disruptors. The orange beams blasted forth from the Enterprise's saucer. It passed through the first battlecruiser's shields as if they weren't there. The cruiser's main hull blew apart in a string of small explosions as her antimatter containment bottles failed. Taylani asked him what happened. They assumed we had phasers and set the shields accordingly. He reopened a channel to the Excelsior. Excelsior, once again, I ask you to withdraw. Drake's reply was emotionless.
You're dead, Kirk. Do you hear me? Weapons officer, retarget the Enterprise. All phasers on the bridge.
Admiral Drake, am I to understand that you've just given orders to destroy a ship belonging to a sovereign world because it has tried to preserve its territorial integrity?
Kirk, your atoms will orbit Chiao until its suns go nova.
Mr. Spock, isn't Admiral Drake's order a violation of Starfleet's general policy? Spock stepped up beside Drake and raised an eyebrow.
Technically, a case could be made that the Admiral's orders are in violation of Starfleet command directives.
Drake sprang to his feet.
Fire, Daniel, fire, or you'll all be charged with mutiny.
Sulu returned to the view screen.
Admiral Drake, with respect, sir, you are in violation of Starfleet command directives. I must request that you relinquish command of this vessel in order that we may convene a general inquiry.
Drake looked at each of the former Enterprise officers assembled before him. Without any trace of emotion, he stepped down.
You will hold the inquiry now.
Sulu took over his chair.
After we have withdrawn from the system, Captain Kirk, this could take several hours, but I suspect we will be returning after that.
The view screen flashed back to an image of Chiao. The Excelsior streaked away into warp. There was no trace of the second Klingon cruiser, only debris from the first. Scotty spun around in his chair. I swear you have the luck of the devil. Wrong afterworld, Mr. Scott. This is heaven, remember? Kirk got up and went to Tailani. You know the lies have to end now, don't you? Your anarchists had nothing to do with what just happened here. Whatever secrets you're trying to hide, you're no longer in control of them. What is the Chalchage Kame? Tailani took a deep breath. I don't know, James. It's whatever is in the armory. And you've never been there? She shook her head. I'm afraid, James. That's part of growing up. And that's what you have to do now. Let's go down to the armory. Kirk took her hand. The future waited for both of them. When Kirk and Tailani took their positions on the transporter pads in the Enterprise, Kirk still wore his civilian clothes, though he was outfitted with a disruptor pistol, communicator, and combat tricorder. Tailani had changed into a jumpsuit, similarly equipped. Scotty adjusted his controls at the operator's console. Locked onto the armory's coordinates. It's a large installation, extends underground through almost the entire city. Any sign of power generators? Aye. But they only make up about a fraction of what's down there. Scotty looked puzzled. It's a sly little trick. They got a transporter shield over the place, hidden in the power generator field so it would disperse any beam that struck it before an operator could recover. But someone's gone to a lot of trouble to keep visitors out. But the modulation routines are fairly old-fashioned. His finger tapped over the controls. We're through. In that case, Scotty, keep a lock on us the whole time we're down there, and energize.